Welcome to our Adaptavist and GitLab webinar, Agent Ready, turning AI ambition into measurable engineering outcomes. On our agenda today, short presentation, our companies, Adaptavist and GitLab, the two presenters, Mathias and I. So now we'll start with a little bit more theoretical presentation towards a major agent native engineering organization. So I will be talking about the metrics, governance structures, and platform patterns that define organizations operating AI at scale. And then Mathias will take over and he will be talking about from strategy to execution, bringing agentic AI to life inside a unified DevSecOps environment. We'll conclude with a live Q&A. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to ask them in the chat already, and we will address your questions once we are coming to this part of the presentation. Our speakers today, myself, Rockemann, consulting team lead for Adaptavist. During my career, I spent most of my time at the intersection of DevSecOps and AI systems, from hands-on engineering to leading cross-functional teams in practice. And I'm here today with Mathias, Ewald. Could you please introduce yourself as well?
Sure, thanks, Jan. Hi, my name is Mathias. I'm a partner solution architect working at GitLab for around 2 years now. And yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you, Mathias. Short introduction of Adaptavist. At Adaptavist, we help organizations to rethink how work gets done by aligning strategy, platforms, and people. We're currently operating in more than 20 countries, and we are supporting more than 22,000 clients. We represent more than 50% of the Fortune 500, and we're a certified GitLab partner. Our partnership with GitLab is built on deep expertise in DevOps transformation, and together with GitLab, we support companies increasing their agility, accelerating their processes, and we help them to maximize the value contribution of their IT. Now to start with my actual presentation, and I would like to introduce 3 interesting numbers that come from the Atlassian State of Teams report from 2026. So 89% of executives say AI has increased the speed of work, but only 6% feel confident they can point to a specific organization-wide AI return on investment. Also, non-strategic AI implementation costs the Fortune 500 a 161 billion annual fragmentation tax. So what are possible reasons for this? Organizations implementing AI are facing the following challenges. It's challenging to scale productivity, to actually move beyond individual gains of developers to organizational-wide efficiency. AI integration is a problem as well. Seamlessly embedding AI into existing workflows and systems is not a trivial task. Ensuring that AI code is functional, secure, and meets quality standards, so trust and security, that's another challenge and the concern that companies adopting AI face. There's data and cost control, there's a vendor lock-in risk, and there's a business problem to actually be able to prioritize AI use cases and to measure return of investment. So we recommend to create a holistic AI foundation to address those challenges. At the root of all, AI is an amplifier, similar to the world of music, where amplified voices, amplified instruments don't create necessarily good music. It's similar in the software development world. Local productivity boosts of individual developers don't translate automatically to increased business value. According to the DORA State of AI-Assisted Software Development report, AI increases actually productivity of well-performing organizations, but it tends to magnify dysfunctionalities of operationally weaker companies. So to get towards a holistic AI foundation, we require orchestration of amplified local productivity. And the strategic target should be the overall organizational system. So we're looking at internal platforms, workflows, team alignment, governance and standards, and knowledge management. Looking at platform requirements, on the very high level, platforms are about structure, connectivity, and trust. It's about establishing the architectural framework and define protocols for agent interaction. It's about seamless integration across the software development lifecycle via APIs and tooling. And it's about trust. It's about ensuring security, governance, and reliability for AI agents to participate meaningfully. When we're looking a little bit deeper into platform requirements, we can identify several requirement themes, and I will briefly introduce those with some of the related requirements. In the interest of the time, I will keep this part of the presentation short. So one of the foundation and infrastructure requirements would be an API-first architecture to ensure that everything is playing well together. Standardized environments are a requirement to support reproducibility and predictability across teams. Scalable computing, it's required to actually handle agentic workloads. Then agents live from data and context. That's without data and context, an AI agent can't function. So we require centralized knowledge access. We require real-time data availability, and semantic retrieval significantly streamlines agentic AI performance. There's the integration and interoperability theme of platform consideration, including tool connectivity concerns, but also support for architectural patterns like event-driven architecture and event-driven triggers to actually gain the ability to initiate agent actions in response to platform events. There's a safety and governance perspective, so require granular permissions to reduce the blast radius of agents to limit the scope of what they can influence. And we also need audit trails to be able to trace agent actions and to support accountability and compliance requirements. And we do require very important human in the loop controls. Every action an AI agent takes must be traceable back to a human that can be held accountable, because you can't hold agents accountable to anything. There's an observability and developer experience angle as well. So agent monitoring requirements, explainability. We need to be able to understand why an agent took a particular action. And good agentic AI platform should also increase developer experience and help the development team to get up to speed. Good platform should not force developers to go from 0 to 100. So it needs to support incremental adoption. Cost control. That's a very central concern nowadays, increasingly becoming more and more important. The big AI LLM providers are trying to getting back into their investment. More and more companies are using more and more AI, getting increasingly higher AI builds. So cost control is really central, and a good agentic AI platform supports the visibility of AI usage. It allows you to create spending limits and alerts once you're approaching the spending limits. Good platform also supports proactive cost control and cost reduction. like model flexibility, so the ability to use, for example, smaller models for less impactful AI use cases or more trivial ones. You might not need the latest frontier model for release node generation. It's maybe you would like to reduce those models for really high impact non-trivial tasks. There's also another angle for cost reduction, and that's efficient context management. So minimizing unnecessary token usage by ensuring agents retrieve only the context they need. The platform should support chargeback and attribution to enable actually to scale cost management over teams and projects. And of course, we need to be able to audit agent cost to be able to deep dive into the audit trail to identify further cost control or angles for improvement. And closely related to cost control is the vendor lock risk. That's the deep dependency on a single AI provider's model, APIs, or infrastructure. And the risks are high switching costs if a vendor's pricing, capability, or strategy changes. Fragmented tool chains are a risk. Proprietary data formats making migrations to other platforms or providers difficult. So to mitigate the risk for vendor lock-in, a good platform should be model agnostic, should provide open standards, should provide modular architecture and portable data. So an agentic AI platform helps by acting as an abstraction layer between workflow and underlying AI services and models. So going from platform requirements and consideration to workflow and development practice considerations, I would like to quote another statement from another DORA report, the Impact of Generative AI in Software Development report. And it states, contrary to expectations, a 25% increase in AI adoption is associated with a 1.5 decrease in delivery throughput and a 7.2 decrease in delivery stability. That's surprising, but it also shows us that the proper application of DevSecOps practice becomes even more critical than it is nowadays. DevSecOps provides the governance backbone that makes agentic AI development trustworthy at scale. It ensures that agents are not to bypass security and quality control. Just as a short introduction or reminder, depending on your background, I won't explain DevSecOps in detail because it's out of scope of this presentation, but DevSecOps includes principles like shift left security. So having security reviews and scan very early in your delivery pipeline, policy as code, continuous integration and continuous development pipeline controls, proper identity and access management, audit trails and traceability. Again, very important, the human in the loop gates to make sure that you're really only deploying what can be deployed without compromising on stability or even legal requirements, continuous monitoring. So my colleague Mathias will go a little bit more in details how this DevSecOps integration for agentic AI workflow will look into details. So I will go to the next part of my presentation, and there I would like to present you a useful tool that helps you to understand where value is created, delayed, or lost across your delivery pipeline. And this tool is value stream mapping. It's a well-established technique from the Lean Six Sigma core toolkit, and it helps you to identify where value is created. It helps you to spot waste, delay, or bottlenecks. You can investigate potential greatest investment impact with it. In particular, in AI context, identify where would be the highest impact for the use of AI agents and automation. But it helps you also to avoid applying expensive AI to steps in your software development life cycles that are not a real bottleneck. So it might help you to actually save your investments that won't give you a proper return. And it acts as a before-after view to measure the impact of AI investment. And overall, it helps you to prioritize where agentic AI can reduce friction and accelerate flow. In this slide, I created an example value chain mapping on the very high level of agentic AI supporting engineering. And the numbers that you see for lead time, they are fictive, but plausible and many times observed for real clients as well. So in this value chain, you see on the left side, ideation and requirements going to design and architecture. And so once we're going into development and coding and peer review and testing, we see relatively high lead times. That's not necessarily an indicator that something goes wrong, but kind of teases our curiosity. And we should maybe be curious if we can actually optimize something there. And for this, we should zoom a little bit into these boxes to see what actually happens there. That's what I'm doing in this slide. Again, it's what you're seeing below in the below diagram. It's an example process implementing DevSecOps. Could look different in your company, but it's a plausible process, and it shows you that there's a lot in development and peer review and testing actually. And you could repeat the exercise and associate lead times, for example, to the different points that you're seeing in the diagram below. And from there, you might have a better idea where friction might occur. And having this in-depth view associated with lead time and maybe other metrics, you will be able to actually go beyond AI copilots. You will be able to go beyond using AI as a code generator and find other ways to use agentic AI to actually improve your software delivery pipeline. So what you are seeing here is you're seeing this robot symbol symbolizing where AI could be applied to your process, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to apply AI everywhere where it's indicated. So you might be very strong, having very sound security review practice, a very responsive security review team, or you might not have even high security relatively. You might have relatively low security requirements, and maybe where you are losing time and value, it's when it comes to analyzing and fixing bugs. Maybe that's your pain point in your company, and having this in-depth view, you're able to actually address this problem by using agentic AI, or at least spot an opportunity to create a pilot program to investigate how AI and to which impact it improves your situation. Would like to conclude my presentation with the introduction of the last framework that plays really well with value chain mapping, and those are the DORA metrics. It's a before and after framework across 4 key indicators. So deployment frequency, lead time for changes, change failure rate, time to restore. And in short, it shows how much difference is made. And that complements the value chain mapping, which shows where agents actually make a difference. So together, the DORA metrics, the value chain mapping, provide a credible and quantifiable base for demonstrating return on investment for AI. Yes, thank you very much for your attention. for your attention. That was my part of the presentation, and now I'm handing over to Mathias.
Okay, so thanks, Jan. You've mentioned so many important aspects of building a platform that includes AI into software development. What I'm planning to do now is give a little bit of an introduction how GitLab does these things, what GitLab does in that space, and also relate to hopefully all of the aspects that you've mentioned before. And yeah, what I want to do is start with a recap on software delivery as it has been and for the past many years. So it has always been very stage-based, right? This is what we're looking at is the DevSecOps loop that we're all familiar with for many years now. And I want to say that GitLab has mastered in some form. Humans manage handoffs in this, from planning to coding, from testing to security, from security to deployment, and so on. Now, what AI makes possible is something that is much more continuous in nature, where teams stay above the loop, as we call it. They define the rules, they let the agents execute across the multiple stages we've just seen. And that is what we mean by intelligent orchestration for DevSecOps, which is our new key message into the market of what we are. So, and the key point is not that the life cycle disappears, the phases disappear, or that the needs for control, security, and governance disappear. It is more that waiting, translation, manual coordination between the stages can more and more be removed. And Jan has made many important points earlier. He gave us an overview of a lot of requirements towards such an AI-driven development platform. And GitLab likes to categorize them into 3 pillars. For the sake of time, I'm going to reduce those to 2 pillars. First, of course, it needs to enable the velocity outcome that we're all hoping for, right? That's like the primary goal everybody has in mind. And the key to that is not just adding AI to the mix as much as possible, but also to provide efficient and comprehensive access to context. And as a single platform that runs the entire software delivery lifecycle, SDLC, GitLab has all that context at hand, and I will show you in a bit how we process that and present that to the agents. And just as important as the motor and the nervous system is the immune system. And that one represents security, control, governance. And I want to argue that the success of your entire investment in AI depends on this aspect. A rogue agent pushing to production without a proper audit log, etc., can get an organization, especially in a regulated industry, into serious trouble. So, but first things first, let me tell you why I think that GitLab is really able to speed up software delivery. This is the AI paradox. Coding is faster, but faster coding does not automatically mean faster delivery. Let's have a look at this typical software project. We see different phases in the first column and their sequence and duration relative to each other to the right. Now, when organizations begin introducing AI coding tools, this is what happens. The time it takes to produce the code obviously compresses, but in total, the process didn't get a lot faster. And that's what happens when you view AI as spicy autocomplete without recognizing its potential in the rest of the process. Everything else now becomes a bottleneck. It was coding before, now it's everything else. And you're not realizing the full value that you could. Now, luckily, GitLab covers all these other phases of the SDLC too. So if you do it right, you turn this into this. And that is the business value everybody is chasing after. But how does GitLab do that beyond just adding a little bit of LLM here and there? Well, it's built on top of a set of principles across the entire platform, which I want to run you through now. The first principle is your workflows. The platform brings a set of what's called foundational agents and flows. That is, both concepts come out of the box, but can be customized to the needs of your organizations. So your teams define how work should happen, what contexts agents should use, what policies matter, and most importantly, where humans stay involved, right? The human in the loop that Jan has mentioned before. Well, and then agents go ahead and flows, agents and flows go ahead and execute those steps and do the actual work. Now, the second principle is your context. Agents are only really useful if they understand more than just the file in front of them. They need access to planning data, the code, of course, pipelines, deployments, scanner findings, operational signals, maybe, and ideally across projects and release cycles to make good decisions. Now, GitLab's unified data model is the foundation here because it reduces the fragmentation of that information, access latency, and it makes things accessible that would otherwise be buried in external tools, and an agent might not even have access to it at all. But there's more than that single source of truth to the whole story. GitLab Orbit is a fairly new development. And what it does, it continuously updates a knowledge graph that connects everything in your software system and makes it queryable by agents and engineers. It does not just index your code, but it connects a user to a merge request to the issue it closes, and to the pipeline that was executed for it, the pipeline to jobs that it ran, and the job to vulnerabilities that the scanner found running inside that job. And that's just one example of many possible of these graph slices that augment an agent's context. Now, by doing this, we achieve two things. We reduce token spend by letting agents gather more and better information with less requests. And secondly, this keeps the context window small and therefore improves the agent's output quality. So we're reducing the cost while boosting the output, if you will. So we've now looked at some of the concepts, not all of them, but the most important ones, and principles that make GitLab a productivity machine. Now, let's turn to how GitLab makes using AI safe. The third principle is your guardrails, and that also includes how the platform is deployed. Not only, but that's part of the story. And GitLab stands out as the only solution of its kind that can run the entire thing, including agentic capabilities, entirely self-hosted or even offline if that's needed. Now, for some organizations, it's not possible to reach out to Anthropic or OpenAI or some other inference API out there and use the large frontier models. They must self-host in an environment they control. And sometimes that can be a frontier model on Google Vertex or AWS Bedrock. And if that's the right move for the organization, then GitLab supports that setup as well. Other times, you have to have the model and GPU in your own data center, and GitLab supports that as well. And smaller open weight models are increasingly catching up with the frontier models in their capabilities and become a real alternative. Now, putting deployment aside, the rate at which agents spread across organizations makes governance one of the biggest challenges that we have right now. Who can run which agents, with what data, taking what actions, in which environments, which agent instructions like agents, MD files, etc., and skills and MCP tools can they consume? And is it safe to do that? And are there any potential attack vectors doing that? Now, governing that new layer that has appeared above the SDLC, I'll come to that in a second, is going to be one of the most important aspects in the near future, and a serious risk to the investment in AI that we're all currently making. And that's why the conversation is much bigger than just productivity. It's about enterprise control, a unified control plane that gives organizations the confidence to move from experiments to widespread use in the field. So obviously this unified control plane I'm talking about is GitLab, right? Otherwise I wouldn't be here. GitLab is a platform that is focused on DevSecOps, of course. That's what you probably know GitLab for. And the industry has been focusing on shift left for the past decade, which refers to, Jan mentioned it before, catching security and governance issues earlier and earlier in the process, because the later we catch them, the more expensive to fix, essentially. But the need for that doesn't change. But it's not the only axis anymore that we need to focus on. Now, with agents plugged into each of these phases and doing work in and across each, we need to take another axis into account, which I call shift up here, next to shift left. So if we have a strong DevSecOps foundation, a strong DevSecOps workflow, and we're confident it'll catch the problems early, then we're already halfway there, right? Only one axis missing. Now, what's left is making sure that agents don't ship outside that pipeline. And we want to secure and govern that entire layer and supply chain that comes with it to catch problems before they end in SDLC artifacts. So GitLab is already doing a lot of this, and it would exceed our time in this webinar to go through every single one. But what I want to do is share with you and give you an idea of what is coming fairly soon. Now, what we're working on is a full AI governance model that records every agent session, every input, every reasoning, every action an agent takes and outputs an agent produces, give visibility into agent behaviors, whether it's wanted behavior or unwanted. The unwanted are probably more interesting though, and provide a complete audit trail alongside actionable recommendations for improvements to our customers. And they're going to need this to comply with regulatory authorities, of course. So let's assume for a second that we have AI everywhere in the SDLC and it's all secure. How do we measure that return on invest that Jan mentioned? And to be fair, it's probably one of the hardest questions right now that we're currently facing, to be honest. And GitLab's answer is actually fairly simple. Now, GitLab has been measuring what's called software delivery performance for years with the help of DORA metrics introduced earlier and value stream mappings. And we are already providing this access to this information for our customers in dashboards. So if you have GitLab, there's a chance you already have all that data at hand. And the more you run on GitLab, of course, the more complete and comprehensive that data is going to be. So AI isn't a new discipline, but it's really just, we really just want to measure how much did we get better at software delivery before and after using AI. And like any other change to our internal processes or adoption of any new tool, it works in the same way. So GitLab is in a great position to tell you, have you become better? Because we have all that data in the database. Everything about your SDLC is known to us. And you really just need to collect and look at the data and make the comparison before and after. Right, so that concludes my part, and I want to open the floor for questions now.
Yes, now to the question and answer part. I'm here with Jason Spriggs. Jason, would you like to introduce you?
Yeah, hi. Jan, great presentation. I'm Jason Spriggs. I'm the global head of our DevOps practice here at Adaptavist. So great to join you for this wonderful webinar.
Great to have you. Okay, let's start with the first question we got. Where should organizations begin? Do you recommend starting with the foundational agents or doing the value stream mapping first?
Yeah, so I think based off of our expertise, what we would notice is that for most folks that don't really either, it's a very obvious issue that they're running into right now in their SDLC, where it's fairly clear this particular part is the binding portion. A lot of folks can get started straight away with trying to use the foundational agents and seeing if they fit their existing models and then being able to fork off of those should they not be reasonable. But for some folks that maybe it's not clear where that holdup is, we recommend going through the value stream mapping exercise. It does take a little bit of time, but it is oftentimes very valuable to our customers in trying to figure out exactly where those pieces lay, and then also what their most valuable investment is if they need to have substantiation higher up as to where things are.
I think I would add also that regardless if you're starting with agents or you're doing a value stream mapping, that I'd recommend to still establish a baseline to establish metrics that you want to measure initially and to track your progress against.
Certainly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll go to the next questions that we get. What's the minimum governance framework you'd recommend before letting agents operate autonomously in CI/CD pipelines?
So great question. And I think that heavily depends on your individual risk statement or like where exactly you want to be able to sort of define your risks. I think the biggest thing that people get tripped up with when trying to throw AI at the problem, especially in CI/CD, is that oftentimes they will just quite literally throw the LLM at a readout of what your existing process is. And that's, in my opinion, probably the wrong way of going about it. That's great for diagnostics, but for things like tests, let's go back to why those tests exist in the first place. You want something that is deterministic, repeatable, and those are both things that LLMs are famously not for. So what oftentimes I'll try and push our customers in the direction of is you use the AI to write your tests. You keep the tests in the same state that they are. Maybe they're being modified, maybe they're being added to. But you want it to do the thing it's good at, generative stuff. And then that feeds into, you have that gets checked, make sure it returns consistently. And then you go downstream to be able to actually implement the work there. So you have something that is generating, something that is deterministic, and then that is repeatable. And that is what is overseeing your pipeline. So I think you have that piece. And then the other part that I would also throw in is that similar in the generative space is going through each part of your pipeline. So this isn't just for tests, but for each individual segment and sort of figuring out which pieces do you want the AI to be looking over and reviewing the work, or which one do you want it to be doing the work? And then sort of putting that map together, because that then also dictates what your approver flow looks like downstream. So I think those are the two things that I would have folks take away. Jan, I don't know if you have anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that's a great perspective that you're describing. I think that the question itself, it's very complex. So from like I understood the question, and that's just adding to your great insights you provided. It's that I think if you want to have agents operate to any degree autonomously within your pipeline, then you, at the very minimum, you have to analyze the blast radius of the agent. You need to know what can go wrong. For example, could you create loops that will eat your token budget within hours, for example? Does the agent have to lose a restriction? Can it actually be destructive on your environment? So you have to analyze the blast radius and to minimize it. I think that's a very bare minimum. And once you're ready to scale AI actually within your team, then I think we should talk also about strict identity and access control, about non-negotiable guardrails with human-in-the-loop controls, immutable logging, monitoring, back traceability to an accountable human, and cost control, of course. So yes, that's what I would have to add regarding this question. And let me see if we have another question. Okay, the question is, you showed that only 6% of executives can point to specific AI return on investment. How do we get started measuring if we have no baseline?
So it's a great way of framing it. I think similarly, you have to ask yourself generally about your developer experience metrics. So the DORA metrics that are already built into the GitLab platform or that you may have in an external platform, using those as your baseline to help determine if your measurements need to be changed in some way, or if you can use those existing metrics are good. Most platforms that are out there already include some level of baseline. GitLab, I think, exposes a very detailed set of things. So you should already try to take a look at what metrics you already have in your pipeline. Some of them might be a little less obvious. Maybe they're in a external build system. Maybe they live more within your issue management pieces, and then you need to take a look at things like how long did it stay in each stage for. Normally, I would have that be a collaborative approach if you don't feel like you currently have something in place. And I would argue that maybe you should talk to someone like within your product organization to try and find those metrics if they are not immediately obvious, because oftentimes those are metrics that people are being based off of in some way, shape, or form. So I would recommend that being a collaborative exercise if you yourself don't have the answer to it. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's a great answer, and I don't have anything to add. So maybe we have time for one more question. And this question is, how long does it take typically to see meaningful DORA metrics improvements after you introduced agentic AI?
So I think we have the issue of immediately seeing metrics improvements. Yeah, well, obviously, if you're using it for code generation, you should see it immediately. Immediately, though, in the grand scheme of an organization, is much more broad. You have your normal bell curve of early adopters / innovators. You have your normal adoption group, and you have your late adopters group, and there are different terms that you can put at each part of the bell curve. But when you're talking about something like that, you need to prove the value initially within your organization. You have to champion it, and then you have actual enablement, and then you have sort of the pushing of the folks that need additional assistance. So you have all of this groups, and that's just say for code generation. And then you start rolling it out into other functionalities, release notes generation, diagnosing production, things along those lines. We're talking generally in the quarter of months to quarters, not in the matter of days. You can see individual gains very quickly, but finding out and sort of ironing out the kinks in how your organization is using things, that takes a much longer period of time. And that's something that we as Adaptavists are here to help facilitate your adoption of and make that a little bit more smooth based off of our past experience.
Definitely. I would also add that you should not expect that agentic AI use without coordination, without proper embedment will will increase your DORA metrics immediately. So actually, there is a study from the DORA Institute that kind of showed that DORA metrics, when it comes to the stability metrics, that's mean time to recovery, change failure rate, that those metrics tend to go down if you don't have proper DevSecOps processes. So that's kind of the point of the presentation today, to show you that there is more to agentic AI than code generation, and that you have to create the proper ecosystem, the proper processes, the proper guardrails, proper value stream analysis to actually get value out of your AI investment. Yes, and I think we're at the end of our time. So thank you very much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you all. And yes, have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thank you.